Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live.
Let me tell you, the dopamine, it's flowing.
I am damn excited. Damn excited.
That's a terrible drum roll.
Oh! Boy, how you doing, man? Patrick.
Will Sterling.
Yeah.
Super Bowl champion, two-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Oh, he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score!
And we'll see you next week. But until then, as always, go Chiefs.
Welcome into the Arrowhead Addict podcast. This is the Intangibles. Thank you so much for joining us on a live edition of the show. And you will notice joining me not only is my usual co-host, Christian Ainsworth, but we also have some guests from another Kansas City Draft podcast that I am a huge fan of. Please help me welcome to the show, Chris Cera and Jay Binkley from the Character Concerns podcast. Fellas, how are we doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm sure Bink is as well. We're glad to be on here. We appreciate the invite.
Yeah, anytime to talk drafts, perfect. How you guys doing?
We're doing great. And, you know, like I said, I want to shout out your guys' podcast one more time. It's called Character Concerns. And I usually listen to it on the podcast, but you can also listen to it on 96.5 here on your FM radio here. Chris, what time does that show usually come on? Is it run weekly or how does it run?
It's only on wherever you listen to podcasts. We did have a Saturday run last year, but that was like right around draft time. So right now it's only on wherever you listen to podcasts, Spotify, etc. It's on there.
Awesome. Cool. Well, also, I think you guys have something going on draft night, right? Where's that happening at?
It's going to be at the Landing over in Liberty. We'd appreciate it if all you guys made it there. We were there last year. It was a great time. A lot of people had fun there. So yeah, we'd appreciate it if everyone made it out again.
Yeah, that's right at the intersection of 291 and 152 here in Liberty. I have spent much too much of my own hard-earned money over at the Landing. Many a Moscow Mule destroyed there. Great place to watch the draft. So you guys are having a live event out there for Thursday night of the draft, correct?
Yeah, Thursday night of the draft, and Saturday we're going to have about a 6-hour show for rounds 4 through 7, and then a wrap up on Sunday morning on 96.5, all this 96.5, and then Monday another draft special 6 to 9. But the Royals schedule's been very cooperative to the draft. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, 96.5, you can also hop on there and listen to all the Royals games, which I am likened to do. I don't know. Baseball's like one of the few sports that I almost like listening to on the radio more when you got Jake Eisenberg and Denny Matthews. Just great guys calling the game. Love being able to pop in an AirPod and listen to the game as I'm helping around the house or whatever. But we've got some work to do today, fellas. What we are going to be doing is we are going to be doing a draft. 100% quality name there that I thought of. Basically what we are going to be doing is the four of us are going to be drafting our own 5-player teams of who we think are the most likely players to become Kansas City Chiefs. Now, there's a lot of different strategies you could employ with this activity, right? You could be taking players that you think that the Chiefs will like. You could be going based upon position of need. You could be going off of previous draft history. Lots of different strategies here. In order for us to do this fairly, I have asked producer Richard to pick a number between 1 and 100 to see who gets the first overall pick. Christian, what is your number?
I'm going to go 49.
Chris.
10.
Bink.
14.
And I'll go 99 because I've watched The Price is Right before. Try to catch that high number. 60. Uh-oh. Who's closest?
Oh, is that me? That's me.
Yeah.
Okay. So Christian's got
let's go.
pick. And then, all right. So we'll go Christian.
Should be you.
And then me. And then
me, and then Bink, and then me.
Okay. All right. Cool. So Christian, with the first overall pick of the Chiefs draft, who are you selecting as the most likely Kansas City Chief?
I'm drafting the Chiefsiest player in this draft. He's young. He's a high level or high impact position. He went to school just up the road. Luther Burden III is going to be my first round pick. He's perfect for the Chiefs offense. He's a yak guy. He can line up at the X. He does the jet sweeps. He can do outbreaking routes. Like, maybe not a contested catch guy, but that makes him the chiefsiest chief of all. We don't need him to contested catches. Anything in space, and he'll get some work done.
Boy, I know that makes Chris really happy. I was just listening to the last episode you guys have, and he's a huge Luther Burden guy too.
Love it.
And, like, I really, really feel like the draft community, especially those of us who have watched Luther Burden over the last 3 years, it really feels like the draft community is overthinking him. I've seen like Deebo Samuel comparisons. I've heard the term gadget player thrown around with him, which I don't see at all. It's just an offense that found creative ways to get their best player the ball. And, some of those were the limitations of Brady Cook, but you did take a player off my board. I had a certain aspect to my board that I went with, and Luther Burden was one of the guys on my board. But here with the second overall pick, I feel like you left the number one pick, the top fit on the board for me. This is easy. What if I told you there was a wide receiver in this draft who was small, who was fast, who is from the state of Texas, and has off the field concerns? It's Isaiah Bond. We're doing it again, boys. They had him in for a 30 visit. The Chiefs, they love stealing from the Steve Sarkisian offense. Isaiah Bond at the beginning of this year basically ran the Xavier Worthy role. He's got off the field concerns. He's from the state of Texas. It makes too much sense. He's small. He's undersized. Andy Reid, he can't help himself. There's a good chance that Isaiah Bond will be available on day 2, maybe even on that, with that Titans pick or with the own Chiefs 3rd round pick. It just makes all the sense in the world. Do I want them to do it? Absolutely not. Will they probably do it? More than likely. So Isaiah Bond is a Kansas City Chief. And then it was Chris who's next, right?
It was Bink.
Okay.
Okay. So is this first round possibilities or just throughout the draft?
Whoever you think is most likely to be a Chief.
Yeah, it could be a 7th round pick, day 3, day 2, whatever you think is most likely.
I'm going to go Nick Scorton, the edge out of Texas A&M. I've always liked him. I like the potential. I like the upside. I like the strength. This dude's a man-child. He's good against the run. He can get to the quarterback and do a lot of different things. He led the Big Ten in sacks before he transferred to A&M. But Nick Scorton, as Andy Reid says, you can't have enough edges, so I would go Nick Scorton. And by the way, I really like that Luther Burden pick. What a slide.
Hey, thank you.
Now,
Nick Scorton pick. I was saving him for the second rotation. I thought he'd still be bored, but
now, Bink, let me ask you real quick on Nick Scorton. Do you like him better at kind of that playing weight that he was at Purdue, where he was more at that like 250, 260, or at A&M, where he was more closer to that 280 number? Because I think Steve Spagnuolo likes him at that 280 number, but the production, the profile says maybe that lighter weight would be.
His production kind of, I would think, meet halfway in the middle. Because obviously you're right, Spags doesn't like him a little bit heavier. But as far as getting a true production out of Nick Scorton, and listen, his player comps on NFL.com are a bit ridiculous. They had Trey Hendrickson on there, which would be awesome, but that's clearly not going to be the case. And George Karlaftis, that was his Lance Erline, I think, had as a player comp, but kind of halfway in the middle, I think, would be the ideal weight for him.
I think the thing that I like the most about Scorton is a day 1 ready edge defender, right? Especially at setting the edge and as a run defender. His vision is really great. Eyes are always up, looking really good at shedding blocks. I feel like day 1 he could come in and make an impact there, which is something that, is a huge check mark for Steve Spagnuolo as far as the run defense goes. So we've got Scorton off the board. Chris, who are you going with?
I'm going to go with cornerback Savon Revel Jr. out of ECU. I think he's got the length that the Chiefs like, the speed the Chiefs like. He's 6'2", 190-ish. And, I think he's a prototypical outside corner. He could be a little feast or famous sometimes, takes a little bit too much risk. But he's a willing tackler, and I think everything that Spags and Dave Merritt like in their DBs is what he brings to the table. I kind of feel like he's a L'Jarius Sneed type corner. So, yeah, Savon Revel Jr., cornerback out of ECU.
He missed most of the year with that ACL injury, but he's a stud, man. I mean, this guy, was like packing boxes at Amazon. And then his dad drove him a couple hours to a tryout at ECU. Well, they liked him and they liked his 39-inch vertical and they liked his speed and they gave him a scholarship. And then kind of the rest is history. But he sets that edge, perfect Spags, and Dave Merritt, like Chris said, type of corner for the Chiefs. But what a pick. Yeah, he's a great pick.
Now, let me ask you, Chris, when you picked Siobhan Ravel, were you thinking pick 31, or you think that's something that they might be able to grab in day 2? Because I know the consensus on him, it's a little bit all over the place because of that ACL injury.
Yeah, I think, yeah, he could be a 31, but he could also be a guy, because remember, they got a few picks on day 2. They could move some picks and maybe even move up higher in the second round in order to secure him. Because I just think, like, the way the Chiefs draft, they draft for tools. They don't really specifically draft for like production. They draft for tools. What do you bring to the table that we can mold into an elite player? And I think Savon Revel has everything that you're looking for at an outside corner. And you get a guy like him, all of a sudden, like you kind of solve the issue that they're going to have here pretty soon, which is outside corner, because you got Jalen Watson on the last year of his deal, Joshua Williams on the last year of his deal. So you kind of have to figure out what you're going to do long term at that position. And I think you get that with Revel.
Yeah,
I think for sure the guy is, I mean, he's a fringe first round pick as it is, but I think no later than 40, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I think there's a good chance at 31 that BPA, just kind of looking at some consensus big boards, could be a corner, like a Trey Amos, like a Azariah Thomas, like a Siobhan Ravel. So I do think if the Chiefs who have put themselves in that position, there's a chance that a lot of Chiefs fans are sitting at home being like, what? A corner? We signed one of those. We've got Trent McDuffie. We've got Jalen Watson back off of injury. Should be healthy. But I think there's a chance when you look at how much time Christian Fulton misses every year, that cornerback not only would be a good investment, but could be best player available. So, Chris, you are back on the board. We're going snake style here. So you just took Siobhan Ravel. Where are you headed next with your next pick?
I'm going to go left tackle Charles Grant out of William and Mary. I think, again, as I just brought up, the Chiefs draft for tools. And you look at him, it's like he's an FCS kid, and he's not going to be a high draft pick. At most, you're talking about late second, but I actually think he's probably going to be third round somewhere, maybe late third round. And you're talking about a guy who has all the tools, I think, to be a good left tackle. He hasn't played for very long. He was middle of high school when he started playing football, but he's got the length they like. He's like almost 35-inch arm length, and he just needs some seasoning. He needs to be developed. And I think you put him behind Jalen Moore and or Jawan Taylor, and you let him get some time to develop, and you see what you got there. I think he's a really nice dart throw on day 2 as an option to kind of figure out your long-term solution at left tackle.
The project tackle was a well that I definitely tackled into here as far as like my list, because like it feels like I'd be pretty surprised if the Chiefs came out of here without a single tackle being addressed, because it's not just the dart throw on Jalen Moore, right? But it's also right tackle next year. Jawan Taylor is cheaper to cut than keep. So it feels like that pipeline, it needs to go, especially with like what we've seen from Wanye Morris. They seem pretty committed to Kingsley Suamataia playing guard. So yeah, Charles Grant has tools for days, but the level of competition is the question there. So give him a year to marinate. Feels like that could be a project tackle taken on day 2 that ideally isn't playing a lot this year, but could be the answer going forward after Jawan Taylor. Bink, you're back on the clock here.
Well, this would be certainly a pick at 31 if it's a possibility. It's my favorite guy in this draft is Derek Harmon, tackle at the defensive tackle, University of Oregon. Will be that 3 technique for the Chiefs. We're talking about a guy that's good against the run. His pass rush moves will remind you of times of Chris Jones light as far as being able to get to the quarterback, but he did everything from Oregon. The guy plays nasty. I think there's a possibility he could be there at 31. He's been kind of all over the place. At first, it looked like second round. Then he started moving up in the first round. And then talking the 20s. Then all of a sudden, you see him sliding maybe to 30s where the Chiefs are at 31. But Derek Harmon's definitely one of my favorite guys for defensive tackle in this draft.
Yeah, and defensive tackles, like very clearly, probably their biggest need on the roster right now. And I know a lot of people, especially the bigger guys, mocking a lot of tackles at 31. I feel like the consensus favorite for pick 31 would be defensive tackle. Christian, what are your thoughts on Derek Harmon? We haven't talked about him a whole lot on the podcast yet.
No, and he's one of those players where you hope Veach recognizes this isn't like, because he loves to take those positions of need, or not positions of need, but those high value positions in the first round. You hope he looks at it and says, this is a pass rusher. This isn't a defensive tackle. You know what I mean? If you put him right to Chris Jones on the defensive line, he can eat up those one-on-one blocks that he's going to get and bird on him. And we saw it with Tershawn Wharton this past year. When you give a guy who has the ability to do that opportunities, he's going to do very, very well. I would love to see him in the red and gold at the end of the first. I don't know if he's going to make it there. I'm afraid somebody's going to fall in love with Derek Harmon, maybe even over Grant, who I think is another player, another defensive tackle that's in that range where maybe he's just shown a little bit more. So, again, I'd love to see him, but we'll see.
Yeah, bigger arms for over 34-inch arms, Derek Harmon, but he can kind of play all over the defensive line, but I think 3 technique is where they'd have him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I am back on the clock with my first pick. I took Isaiah Bond, the wide receiver from Texas. Up next here, I'm going to the Steve Spagnuolo thresholds here at defensive line. I'm going to take edge defender Elijah Roberts out of SMU. I like him a lot as a player. I have him as my edge 14, which sounds like I don't love him, but I also have a lot of guys that the Chiefs aren't going to be taking ahead of him, like your James Pierce, like your Mike Greens. Here's what I like about Elijah Roberts. First off, you've got over 33-inch arms with 6'3", 285-pound frame, ran a 4.78 40-yard dash. This guy can rush on the outside. It looks a lot like Charles Omenihu, but can also kick inside. There's a lot of guys in this that I feel like could be there. I don't want to mention their names because someone might steal them from me, but Elijah Roberts from SMU, I think he's a guy that could be taken at the back end of round 3, maybe even with pick 133, depending on, that's their first pick on day 4 or on day 3, in round 4. He's a guy that I think could make a lot of sense. I think there is a need for edge defender here. I'd be surprised if they get out of the draft without one of them.
Oh yeah, dude, that's a perfect pick. I'm going to follow you up though. I got 2 guys. I'm at the right. I get 2 picks.
Correct.
I'm going to go with 2 guys don't feel like are getting a lot of love here. Dylan Sampson and Andrew Makuba. One's a
that's a big guy right there, Dylan Sampson.
I was going to go Dylan Sampson, my friend. Glad somebody picked the offensive player of the year in the SEC.
Dude, fantastic. And you look at his game speed, like he didn't necessarily just show out during his pro day or the combine, but like he over 22 miles an hour during a game clocked. So he has the ability to get downfield, get those explosive plays. He's a perfect Chiefs guy. I mean, like he'll probably be there at pick 66. He's 20 years old, very, very young coming to the league. And you look at what he can bring. If you just put on a highlight reel, you're going to think this guy's a top 5 running back in the draft. He has the highlights. He's lacking some consistency. I say pick 66, but love him as a Chief player. And then Andrew Makuba, the safety from Texas, 20 years old, 5.12 RAS. This guy has, this guy has played in the slot, played safety. He can be that kind of chess piece for the Steve Spagnuolo defense. He plays all around. And I think you can get late as well. This is another draft pick that you pick 66 or further down, and he can play legit for you in a DB room that's, kind of top heavy.
Yeah, and Makuba, I think is a high level fit because some people have talked about like a Nick Eman-War. It could be BP at the end of round 1, but there's some overlap there with what we think that Jaden Hicks is going to do. But Makuba, he's that free safety type. Him and Xavier Watts, I think, would be like the first top high level fits. But Bink, why don't you tell us what you love so much about Dylan Sampson since he sniped you there with the running back out of Tennessee?
He can do a lot of different things. This type of guy you don't have to bring out on third down. He can do a lot of different things for your offense. The blocking wise, too, if that's a big concern for you, I do feel his blocking is above adequate for that. He's still a little bit smaller as far as his height is concerned, but kind of the perfect size for a running back, but definitely a breakaway threat. It gives them something different than they don't have. I know that with Pacheco, it's supposed to be the speed guy. You're in a 4.37 at the combine. We just haven't seen it. It's got to be someone that runs well between the tackles on 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1. Obviously, they're not going to do the tush push. So somebody like that, I think Dylan Sampson kind of has all the tools that you'd look for in a running back. Obviously, you're not getting Amari Hampton. You're not getting Genty. But I like Dylan Sampson there at the head of the class for other guys you can get, not in the first round, but later on. We have him in the 3rd round, pick 66. I think we went with Dylan.
Yeah, I think running back will be one of the positions that we can actually glean the most of what the Chiefs are thinking about here. Because right now the running back room's still kind of incomplete, despite that they have 3 guys. You've got Pacheco, who's never really been a guy that they've trusted consistently on 3rd down. You've got Hunt, who stole a lot of the workload because of injury this year, a short yardage guy, but not necessarily the profile anymore that you want on 3rd down. Then they bring in Elijah Mitchell, who has not been a 3rd down guy, no matter what people think just because he's from San Francisco. He's more of an in-between tackles guy. So do they go just to complete this year's running back with a guy who profiles as a 3rd down guy, kind of like a Brashard Smith? Do they go more for a workload guy like a Quinshon Judkins or something like that? I think the back that they take will get a good idea of what they're thinking for the future of this running back room, because really after this year, there's no certainty beyond Carson Steele, which I don't think that he's a certain thing either.
I think Sampson could kind of be that guy. The one thing about Mitchell, like his one trait that I do like about him, I mean, he's a physical player, but the 4.32 speed, he ran 4.32 at his pro day in the back. He's a blazing fast dude. But again, health is a big concern. You have to be able to be on the football field.
For sure. All right. Well, you guys left me another easy one here at running back. I think we all agree that the Chiefs will come out of this draft with a running back. And, Clark Hunt, he's a businessman, right? We've got a K-State player on the team with FAU. We've got Nick Bolton at linebacker, which means it's time to engage those Jayhawk fans. We might be moving across state lines anyway. We need a running back. So it's going to be Devin Neal, the running back from Kansas. I like him because I think he might be one of the more pro-ready running backs. I don't necessarily think that he is my top running back, but I think if you wanted to bring in a guy who can do a little bit of everything for you, he can. Outside zone, duo, man gap, all the power runs. He's a moderately good pass protector. He's had a lot of passing game production as well too, and an offense that I think is pretty creative under Kodonecki whenever he was there. I can really see him mixing in pretty quickly as the change of pace behind Isaiah Pacheco, behind Kareem Hunt, and very quickly take that job as the lead guy. Only thing that concerns me about him is I believe he's over 600 touches in college. He got fed a lot of volume, and I don't necessarily see home run speed, but I will point out, as I always do with running backs, there's not a lot of home runs hit in the NFL anymore with the 2 high shells and those type of things. But he's the type of guy that can turn those 6-7 yard gains into 15, 20 yard gains. Like the overall profile for him. Let's get those KU fans engaged. Devin Neal is my pick.
Well, do you like Devin Neal better than DJ Giddens?
I
if it came down between the two, would you go Neal over Giddens?
I prefer Giddens because I think Giddens has a little bit better profile for broken tackles. I like his vision better at the second level.
Big dude.
And then a little bit bigger. And then also I think, like, again, the wear and tear, I think there's a little bit higher ceiling with Giddens than I do Neal, but I have him close. I have Giddens as my RB5, and I think I have Neal at RB8.
His speed, DJ Giddens' speed is really good. 4.43. Not that it really matters for running backs at that point, but he's big too. He's over 6 foot. To me, he's that home run guy. You're talking about the home run guy because DJ Giddens really showed that towards the end of the year. That home run, you get him out in space and he's gone. I mean, that's the one thing I like about him is he finishes.
Yeah, well, I mean, here's the thing: we can't have like 2 K-State guys. That'd be showing favoritism. Just like Luther Burden, he wouldn't be a good pick. 2 Mizzou guys, so we gotta balance it out. So gotta get a KU guy. Maybe it's Kobe Bryant. We don't know. But all right, I believe it is your turn, Bink. Who are you taking with this pick?
Since Dylan Sampson was going to be my dude, but as far as guys that we're not looking right off the top of the board, Joshua Farmer, the defensive tackle. I'm going to stay on defense once again, out of Florida State. You're talking about a tremendously physical guy. Again, 35-inch arms on defense, albeit not on offense. He read like some on offense. But he's really good. You talk about a guy you can put in a 2-eye, he can play 3, he can do a lot of different things, but extremely physical player. Not in the first round, obviously, but second to third, I'd go Joshua Farmer.
Yeah, and his mock draft profile, one of the most similar players for his is Fabian Lovett, who the Chiefs already have on the roster. Played next to him last year. Obviously a little bit more upside with Farmer, those 35-inch arms. And I believe he said that, and this stuff's always hit and miss, but I think that he's either had a 30 visit with the Chiefs or a combine visit. I know he quote unquote said, like, I talk to the Chiefs almost every day, which I'm not sure what that means, but all right. But it sounds like there might be some mutual interest there between the Chiefs.
Here's the one thing about the top 30 visits and how they use them. Last year, they brought Kingsley in for a top 30 visit, and obviously they signed him. They brought Carson Steele in, and obviously they got him as an undrafted free agent. The year before, there was only two guys they ended up drafting. It was Rasheed Rice and B.J. Thompson. They came in for top 30 visits. They don't get a lot of guys they had on top 30 visits. It's more of a question answer with some of their, fringe type guys. They have drafted in the past, but that's the one thing about top 30. I mean, it's very, very few that actually get taken by the Chiefs they brought in here. They've had some interesting ones like Harold Fannin coming in for a top 30 visit and stuff like that. But again, I think the Chiefs more or less do it because they have other questions regarding the player, but they have taken them in the past.
Yeah, those 30 visits, right? Like they can be used for all sorts of different things. So they can be medicals. In the case of Rasheed Rice or Isaiah Bond this year, it could be character related as well too. Bring in the guy, see what type of person he is, and get to know them a little bit better and answer some questions there. Maybe some questions about, hey, why did we transfer here? What was the thought process on moving on from this school? Whatever. There's all sorts of different things. And then it could be to get them on the whiteboard or test them on something that they want to see. So good pick there. All right, Chris, let's head to your two picks.
Well, since Bink took one of my guys in Joshua Farmer, I'm going to go with DJ Giddens, running back out of Kansas State. I do think they can have multiple Kansas State guys on the team. It's okay. I'm a big Giddens supporter. As you guys noted, his size, his speed profile, almost 4.3 speed. And, he's one of those guys I think fits what the Chiefs like, because he does have a little bit more patience than someone like an Isaiah Pacheco. Pacheco's one of those guys that looks for contact. Giddens is a guy that is fine with contact, but he's not going to go looking for it. He's looking to be elusive, make guys miss, and then he kind of has that home run speed on the back end of that. So I really like what he brings to the table. I think he fits with what the Chiefs are looking for at a running back, and that's the reason why I think Giddens would be a perfect fit for the Chiefs.
I think he's like a 39.5-inch vertical, too.
Yeah, he's an athlete. Like he's an athlete on top of size that's similar to like an Omari and Hampton, which I think is kind of ideal for today's style of NFL. So yeah, he's my pick, my first one there. My second one is defensive tackle Omar Norman Lott out of Tennessee. He's not much of a run defender, but his snap count number is pretty low because he was mainly a pass rusher. But I look at him as a great rotational pass rusher on the interior as a 3-tech. His pass rush, his actual win rate on pass rushes was almost 20%. So he was constantly on the interior generating pressure on quarterbacks in the SEC against grown men, and he was constantly able to get to the quarterback, or at least push the pocket back and force the quarterback to have to move around and get away from the pass rush. I think he's a great fit for what Spags is looking for. Little undersized, so he's not going to be a 3-down guy, but I think he would be a great addition to the pass rush.
Yeah, Lott is one of those guys that, like, if you told me, I think there's going to be a lot of eyebrows raised towards the back of round one this coming Thursday night, because there's not a lot of consensus in this mock draft. Guy 15 and guy 40 in this draft, there's not going to be a huge gap between them. So I would not be surprised at all if we heard his name called on round one, because you said it. Here's a guy who rushes from the interior and has had a lot of success against high-level offensive lines in the SEC. That's a skill set that's really valuable. And, there's quite a few guys who are pass rush first interior defensive lineman guys, and you just don't worry about the run defense as much, especially when you can sub in a guy like Mike Pennell or something like that. That would be exciting. We haven't seen really the Chiefs try to go for a pass rush first guy, but there's obviously some snaps to fill out by Turk Wharton, who left. I like that fit. That makes sense. And then, DJ Giddens, right? Not only does it make sense with the local ties, we've seen that they enjoy that, but there's a clear need at running back. And again, I think there's a chance at running back they're going to be targeting a guy who could be a bell cow guy. We've seen Andy Reid historically likes a bell cow guy. So I could see, going into the playoffs this year, DJ Giddens is your lead back. So
I'm curious how many first-round grades they have on this draft class, because, in the past when they don't like the draft, it's been between 10 and 15. Sometimes it's been a little more. I know they had McDuffie. That class was a 21 or 22. They had a grade on him, because essentially at picking 31, you're really getting a second-round player. in many people's eyes. I mean, that's exactly what you're getting at pick 31 because a lot of these guys just don't have first round grades.
Yeah, I have 16. And that's even like I felt like I was being a little generous. Like my last guy that I have as a first round grade is Eman Worry.
That's probably pretty fair.
Yeah, and that's really just like you're betting on the traits and like if he's put in the right situation, I could see it being a first round value for sure. So Bink, with your pick, who you taking here?
We haven't gone tight end. Not saying you're getting anybody like a Tyler Warren or anything like that. You're not getting the complete package of tight end. One of the guys I liked at the beginning of the year, and he did play consistently, hasn't tested extremely well, but it's a damn good blocker. Mitchell Evans played in 16 games for Notre Dame. That's kind of the guy that I'd throw a dart on if you decided to go the tight end route. I know they brought Harold Fannin in for a visit. He was going to be / tight end, H-back, fullback type role. But, I think Mitchell Evans maybe a shade better than a Jared Wiley that came in here. Obviously, you're not getting the heir apparent for Travis Kelce and Noah Gray, but I'd bring in an extra tight end like Mitchell Evans would be a guy that I'd look for from Notre Dame.
Yeah, and he was banged up the first part of the year and got healthier on through the playoff run. But yeah, I think like tight ends, it's an interesting position because you don't really know a lot of what you have in Jared Wiley yet, especially after coming off the ACL injury. You've got Noah Gray, who's a solid number 2, but if the Chiefs are going out and trying to replace Travis Kelce in the draft, they're going to be disappointed, right? So
unless you get a Tyler Warren, which they're not going to get.
Yeah. I don't think that he's going to be in their zip code for sure. And it'll be interesting to see how they approach that position because Andy Reid's had a good tight end for quite some long time in this offense. That's been Patrick Mahomes' security blanket at times. It'd be interesting to see like how they address that position.
Well, there's somebody later in the draft, like a Gadsden, Randy Gadsden from Syracuse, but he played wide receiver. He's got the body of a tight end. He got switched to tight end, but he catches extremely well. But you want someone that can block. I mean, that's the key. It has to be someone that can block at that position. Gunnar Helm out of Texas, somebody I really liked. I've lot earlier. Asked Chris. I liked him from. Well, he actually led Texas in receptions this year, and he appeared to be athletic, but his combine was absolutely terrible. But Gunnar Helm can catch the football. Like I like a lot of things about Gunnar Helm, but that combine kind of turned me off a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. Did he test at the pro day, or have they had their pro day yet? Because I know he like sprained his ankle or something on his 4-yard dash, and all.
What they had the. I don't know if he competed in his pro day. I don't think he did. I don't think he ran there, Chris. Do you remember Gunnar Helm? I don't think he's run again since the combine.
Yeah, we'll have to look into it because, like, that's one of those things. Like, all right, I'll believe your ankle sprain story because Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter were very quick to tweet out screenshots and everything that the agent told them to tweet out. It looked like he did sprain his ankle, but then again, if we're not going to get more testing, it's like, okay, well, this is what we got to go off of. But,
he had more catches than Matthew Golden. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's not like
I mean, he was an integral part of that offense for sure, and he's a guy who can kind of do it all, right? Like he's going to block, he's going to get some yak for you, he's going to run that vertical seam that a lot of tight ends stretch the field with. I like Helm, and the testing's like the one turnoff for him. All right, so this is my 4th pick here, and I'm struggling here. I think I'm going to go back to the running back just because I think there's a guy. He screams Chiefs to me. I think it's part of what they were trying to do when they drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Obviously, it did not work out well, but the Andy Reid screen game, it needs Travion Henderson. And I think that he's a guy that could be available there in the 2nd round because I think some teams are going to look at him and say that's not a 3-down back. I think that he plugs in immediately to the Chiefs offense as their 3rd down back. An NFL, like if you took one of his traits as an NFL pass protector, he could have a pretty long career in the NFL just off of his pass protection alone. That's pretty rare for running back to say. It's got home run speed. You know that they're going to love the passing game dynamic from him. I just think he makes a lot of sense for the Chiefs. And no matter if it's Isaiah Pacheco or Kareem Hunt, who's taking those 1st and 2nd down carries, and not to say that Henderson can't. Henderson can carry between the tackles, but he's a guy that like they can really cook up some stuff in the passing game for. So
the interesting thing there is Veach's philosophy on Ohio State. He's
It
yet
does
to
seem like
draft a player out of Ohio State. And I don't know if he's skeptical about those numbers. He did mention Big Ten schools he was skeptical of, but he has not drafted Ohio State. Matter of fact, at their pro day, he didn't have a single member of the Kansas City Chiefs there. So that is interesting as far as Ohio State and Brett Veach.
That's one of those things. I've read that in comments before too, and I didn't really notice it until someone pointed it out to me. And it's like, wow, did like Veach get snubbed from like getting an Ohio State offer or something when he was going through college? I don't know.
I don't know, but man, he just doesn't get Ohio State players. Now, if Jeremiah Smith was available, which he will be in a couple of years, I hope he changes his mind.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I'll go Travion Henderson. Christian, your pick, your 2 picks.
All right, back to back again. Yeah, I'm going to go with a wide receiver from Florida. And I know you're thinking not Xavier Restrepo. He's not going to be good enough. He's not athletic enough. You're right. I'm going Chimere Dike, not Dyke, from Florida. 22 years old, 9.8 RAS. A taller, sort of 6 foot, 5'8", so almost 6'1". And he has the explosion, ran a 4.4340. Get downfield. If you're having him run deep crossers across the field, looking to exploit those 2 high safety shells that we're seeing a lot, Chimere Dike is the dude to do it. He's got great hands. More importantly, maybe than that, he played with Cam Ward, who is going to be the first overall pick in the draft this year. Lots of off-schedule catches for him as well. And if you're coming into the Mahomes offense, you're probably going to get some of those reps where it's late 3-4 seconds and you're out there and you got to make something happen. And Chimere Dike has the experience. He knows what he's supposed to do in those situations. So that'd be my first one. My second one is Cameron Williams, out of Texas, 21 years old. He has the arm, he has the athletic traits the Chiefs look for. Very much a pass protector first rather than a run blocker. Just seems like he went right in. He's got time to develop. He's going to be a round 2, round 3 guy. And we get another developmental tackle on the team. I think that's great for the future of the tackle position, whether he plays right or left. There's going to be a vacancy in the very near future. I think he has the ability to step in and take legit reps.
It's interesting you brought up Xavier Restrepo. That's one of the cases of running the 40 doesn't help you because you're talking about Miami's all-time leading receiver in yardage and catches, and there's been a lot of good receivers coming out of Miami. But that 4.76 and that 4.8340, it sucks too because I really, really like this guy and his hands and what he possesses because he'll still play in the NFL. It won't be as a starter, be a situational type player, but hopefully play a lot of special teams. But Xavier Restrepo is someone I really like until he ran that 40.
Yeah, he's one of the players that you watch and you're like, if anybody deserves to have all the traits, top tier wide receiver, it's him. Like, ran his routes great, was very deceptive, just doesn't look like he has everything that you need to be like a legit number 1. And that's so unfortunate, but still love the great film watch.
Oh, he creates great space. He catches everything, but that might have been a situation where he cost himself money. But I guess it's better for NFL teams to know where they stand.
For sure, yeah. I like the call out there. You've been big on DK, or however you pronounce his last name, from Florida. I haven't got a chance to watch him much. Florida is like one of those teams this year that there's just no reason to like. I got a little distracted watching DJ Lagway the other day whenever I was watching some Ole Miss defense, which there's a lot of guys, but there's always those games that you just come back to. Like last year for me, I swear I watched Alabama versus Texas like 50 times between A.D. Mitchell, between Dallas Turner, between Xavier Worthy. There was just so many guys to watch. I haven't come across a bunch of Florida yet to get a look at him.
That's Chris's wheelhouse.
Watch out for Lagway. He might be a first round pick in a couple of years.
Oh, dude, I there were some clips. I was like, he is slinging this thing.
He's for real. He's the truth.
Yeah, it took them longer to go to him than I thought, but once they did, you can see the talent for sure, and it saved what's his name's job, the head coach, because
Billy Napier. Yeah,
there was some consternation there, but get that top quarterback in there, things start looking a lot better.
Right.
Okay, so with my last pick here, I've gone back and forth here. I thought about what type of player. I feel like it's safest to go with a first round pick because generally consensus is much closer on first round pick. And what we're trying to do, we're trying to see who can get the most guys right here. So I'm going to go with Walter Nolan. I'll piece the chat. This seems to be the correct answer. Like if you say who does the consensus want as a first round pick this year, it really seems like a lot of people want Walter Nolan. Obviously, one thing that you like about Walter Nolan, it's going to be the profile as what he can be as far as ceiling goes. You look at him physically, he's got that Chris Jones look where this guy, he carries his weight well. He's a better run defender than he's given credit for. I think a lot of people look at him and they think pass rush. He did hit a career high in sacks this year, but really that run defense is what's popped the most. He's a guy that's going to be lining up mostly at the 3 tech, head up over a guard or shaded inside there. But he is a guy that I think can bring the most similar profile to what Chris Jones does for the Chiefs. He's not as big as Chris Jones as far as height goes, but I really like him as a guy who can rotate in really early. I think he will be available at 31. It sounds like there's quite a few questions about just the character, nothing criminal, nothing like that. But he has also been to 7 schools in 6 years, including high school, which is, raised some questions about him. It looks like a lot of teams are inviting him in for a 30 round or a 30 visit, which means, again, teams are just kind of doing their work. I like the ceiling there. I like the fit. Put him under Chris Jones' wing. I think that you could have kind of a Jalen Carter-esque impact. Obviously not quite the prospect, but that's kind of what I see here. And also, dude, get him at 31 because the Eagles are going to grab him at 32, right? Like that's just not something I want to see. So similar thing happened with Nolan Smith where the Eagles were able to snatch him up before the Chiefs. So let's not return the favor there.
Yeah, Jalen Carter will make you sick. He picked 9th when he looked the consensus number 1 pick, and then the Eagles ended up with him.
Yeah, and Jalen Carter had an arrest warrant put out for him at the combine. That whole Georgia street racing debacle that continues to go on there in Athens. But I mean, there's some whispers around Nolan, and I think that those are the type of players that the Chiefs have done well with. Not necessarily, we know that they love their character concerns. Obviously,
they love SEC guys. That's perfect for what Beach likes. Beach cut his teeth scouting the SEC. So being an SEC player definitely helps him.
And he's got that A&M background, which we were just talking about. Scorton, Shamar Stewart. A&M needs investigated for what they have done to these guys, that they've got guys like Shamar Stewart, like Nick Scorton, whose production goes down. Guys leave the program, they get better. I'm not sure what they're doing over there defensively. They build freaks, but they're not highly productive. I think they're playing a lot of contain over there. So that completes my team. Bink, your last pick.
So we're going to do Mr. Irrelevant?
Whoever you want.
How about Nazir Stackhouse? What's his issue, Chris? He falls
Always
asleep.
taking my guy.
Yeah, Nazir Stackhouse, Mr. Relevant. Also, Zachariah Franklin, the wide receiver from Illinois, is kind of a sleeper. Didn't go to the combine, but it's a guy they really like. But I'm going to go Stackhouse, defensive lineman out of Georgia, Mr. Relevant.
He had a big interception on Brady Cook in the Mizzou game the year before. He was stumbling, bumbling, rumbling down the thing. Brady Cook, what are you doing, my guy? He's right there. He's a falling asleep, intercepting the ball. Nazir Stackhouse, though, he's a guy who's going to be a day one impact run defender. We've seen that you sniff around these guys before. They were supposedly interested in Mozzie Smith in 2023. It's a thing that they could use to upgrade and get more young at the position. Derek Nottie goes out the door. I think there's an immediate impact there for Nazir Stackhouse from Georgia coming in and taking up some run defense snaps.
Oh, it's also note the Chiefs brought in Dalton Cooper from Oklahoma State is kind of a late round type offensive lineman for a top 30 visit. He's been visiting a lot of teams, but it's a guy that had a ton of starts at Texas State, and then he transferred to Oklahoma State. He played 36 starts, I think, at left tackle. And he played right tackle for just 2 games at Oklahoma State. Most of the snaps came at left tackle. It's a guy that hurt himself, tweaked his knee, did play in the East-West Shrine game, but he is here in the top 30 visit. Again, it's an offensive tackle that they won't get till at least the 6th, 7th round, if that, maybe an undrafted free agent, but I know it's a guy they really like.
Yeah. Again, that they've not been shy about sniffing around interior offensive linemen too on some of their 30 visits, which don't get me started on that. Let's not continue to draft that position after spending 3 picks on it last year. Chris, you get to be Mr. Irrelevant of this draft.
Since Bink keeps stealing all my picks, I'm gonna have one that I guarantee you he didn't think I would take. Smail Mondon Jr., the linebacker out of Georgia. He's very raw. He doesn't have a lot of refinement to his game. He's going to be a guy that probably starts out as a special teamer, but then can work his way up the depth chart. But I think he has the potential to be a really, really good, like, plus third linebacker for the team. He's an incredible athlete, and you look at his combine numbers, like, they're really good. The problem with Smail is just he's really raw, and he doesn't have a lot of refinement to his game. But I think, you can probably take a flyer on him in the 7th round, and you're getting a guy that's a really, really great athlete, just needs some refinement.
Linebacker is a sneaky position here, right? Like I did a picture perfect mock for the Chiefs this week, and I did Sean Dolak, the traitsy Mac defender from Buffalo. I think that we could see linebacker, especially because they're real impact special teams players. They can come in day one, and then I think work their way in. Whether they end up keeping Leo Chanel, what's the deal with Drew Tranquil after this year? I do think that there's some questions to be answered there. So linebacker, I think those day three, those special teams contributors, there's an instant role for impact there. So, Chris, recap our team for us, because if I was good, I would have written down everyone else's team. I was not. So recap us our team, your team.
Okay, so mine, I took Savon Revel Jr., the corner out of ECU. I took Charles Grant out of William and Mary. I took DJ Giddens out of Kansas State. Defensive tackle Omar Norman Lott out of Tennessee, and then finally linebacker Smail Mondon Jr. out of Georgia.
And Bink, your team.
Nobody took Kobe Bryant or Mello Dotson out of Kansas. I figured somebody would do that, even though they ran a slow combine time. I went Derek Harmon, defensive tackle out of Oregon. Nick Scorton, I think was my first pick in that. But again, talking pick 31, Scorton or Derek Harmon. Mitchell Evans, the tight end at Notre Dame, was one of my picks. Nazir Stackhouse, that was my Mr. Irrelevant. Joshua Farmer, defensive lineman out of Florida State, probably round 2, possibly 3. I didn't pick Dylan Sampson, but I do love that pick that someone picked Dylan Sampson. Love that pick too. But Scorton and Derek Harmon would be my top 2 guys.
All right. Well, I have Isaiah Bond as my first round pick. Then I took Elijah Roberts, the edge defender out of SMU. Then I took Devin Neal, the running back out of Kansas. Then I took another running back, Travion Henderson from Ohio State. And rounding out, I had Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle from Ole Miss. Christian, finish us out.
So first pick was Luther Burden, wide receiver out of Missouri. Second pick, you guys heard, it's the best in this entire. So I'm not going to disagree with you. Dylan Sampson, running back out of Tennessee. Then Andrew Makuba, safety out of Texas. Chamir DK, wide receiver out of Florida. And then my last pick is Cameron Williams, the offensive tackle from Texas.
Okay. Well, drop in the chat who you think had the best team. There's going to be 257 players drafted. So reality, if like one of us hits one or two of these guys, we did a heck of a job here. But we know the Chiefs, we know what they like, we know their fits. So comment in the chat or comment on the video who you think had the best team overall, who you like the most. One more time, guys. Chris, Jay, tell us where we can find Character Concerns Podcast at and where we can attend the live event.
So you can listen to us wherever you listen to your podcasts at. I did misspeak at the beginning. We are doing live draft specials, as Bink brought up. Our next one is going to be on Thursday night, 6 to 9. We'd appreciate it if you guys tuned in and listened to us. And our live draft special, which will be taking place at the Landing in Liberty on the first night of the NFL draft on April 24th. We'd appreciate it if you guys joined us there. We have a lot of fun. We have a contest going. Whoever gets the most right wins $965. So we'd appreciate if you guys made it out there. And like I said, we definitely appreciate the support that everyone has for our podcast.
Awesome. Yeah. And just, make sure when you're there, you pop in an AirPod, you listen to our live stream as well. You just gotta consume all of the content properly. Just hook it up to an IV drip, get all the Chiefs content all of the time. Last question before we get you out of here, fellas. We've been asking all of our guests this. This doesn't have to be a part of your draft, totally separate, just gut feeling, gun to your head, as some people would say. Who do the Chiefs pick with the 31st pick? Jay, I'll let you go first.
I think it's going to be defensive line or an edge. I mean, those are the top two positions in the draft. If Derek Harmon is there, I could seriously think they're going to go there. Luther Burden is the best slot receiver, in my opinion, in this draft. That is an opportunity. If they did trade back, that's someone there, but I would definitely get Luther Burden if he's still there. I like Luther Burden better than these other guys. If he's still sitting there at 31, that's the direction I would go. But Scorton is edge or Derek Harmon, defensive tackle. I do find it interesting that none of us had an offensive lineman going at pick 31, which I think that's realistic. Because the Chiefs kind of tell us what they want to do when they went out and got Jalen Moore, just like a few years ago when they had an opportunity to get Sam Cosmi or Liam Eichenberg or Alex Leatherwood and all these, and they bolted and they tried to sign Trent Williams. It didn't work out, and they ended up with Orlando Brown. So looking at the tea leaves, most of the mocks will have the Chiefs going offensive tackle, which I disagree with.
And Chris, gun to your head.
I would go with Derek Harmon. I just think he's going to be available. I don't think I would love Walter Nolan. He's my favorite guy that they could take. I don't think he's going to be there. So I would go Derek Harmon. He has all the traits that the Chiefs are looking for at a defensive tackle, disruptive in the run and the pass. I think they'll go him.
Awesome. Well, fellas, thanks so much. This is a really fun crossover event. We've had the opportunity to do stuff with some of the guys from Draft Network. We've had opportunity to do stuff with KCSN guys. So it's good to get you guys on here. Our never-ending quest to just do cool draft collabs. So it's an awesome community. We're glad that you guys could join us, and we'll be listening and hopefully seeing you at the landing.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Appreciate everything.
All right. Thanks, fellas. There they go. All right, Christian. Well, we have some questions to answer here. That was really fun. I'm excited to see what team ends up getting with the most guys. So we'll have to check back and see some love in the chat here for Bink's draft, which, he's a guy. He knows what he's talking about. Respectfully, maybe incorrect, but we'll see. Real quick to round us out today, I kind of want to just ask you some questions. So I've created a Chiefs draft quiz, and I think I want to zoom out on the draft here and talk about some of the bigger questions that need to be answered as far as positions go and Chiefs draft needs. We still got some time here. Like I mentioned with the guys there, we're going to have a live stream of the first round. We'll be here breaking down every pick, not just the Chiefs picks, right? Like when the draft goes live, we go live. We'll be talking picks 1 through 32. I promise to give way more analysis than you want on every pick. I live for this stuff, guys. I cannot wait. The first round, it's its own living, breathing thing. I have a ritual for the first round, right? In the morning when we wake up, we eat pumpkin pie for breakfast with a glass of milk in honor of the GOAT, Mel Kiper. He eats pumpkin pie every day for breakfast. Did you know that?
No, I had no idea. No,
Yeah, so
it's brought up every single time they're draft, dude.
Okay, so I eat pumpkin pie for breakfast on draft day. Then we get up, we put on our All Juice team shirt in honor of Therese Paylor. We watch the draft day movie. We run over the big board. We write down our notes and Chipotle for dinner because we need to carb load since we're making the mother run. Afterwards, we're all the reactions, all that stuff. Then we're staying up late that night. We're writing up a second round, third round, fourth round. A rest of the mock. Right? We write a mock draft that night. Then the next day we wake up. We take PTO so we don't have to work, and we're re-listening to all the live streams. Okay, that's my ritual. I'm excited. Can't wait to be a part of it. So, but we've got some questions to answer here. So, Chiefs draft quiz here. You're the one who's taking this quiz, Christian. So I'm going to ask you. I'll tell you what the right or wrong answer is. So first off, true or false? The Chiefs' biggest need in the draft is defensive tackle.
True. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct.
Thank you.
Given what they have on the roster, right? While I do think that Jerry Tillery likely makes the team, just like what type of pro he is, I don't think that Jerry Tillery is a guy that you're like, oh, well, we don't want to draft this guy that we like on our board because Jerry Tillery's here, right? Like this is a guy who did not have a sack last year. He's mainly been keeping around the NFL just as a rotational guy and projectable traits. So Jerry Tillery, that's not a guy. Mike Pennell, he's a rotational player at best. Then you've got Chris Jones, and that's really all you have. You've got some UDFA guys like Fabian Lovett, who maybe, he makes the team this year. A guy who was a consensus popular UDFA, a high-ranked UDFA at that. But yeah, defensive tackle. I think it's definitely their biggest need.
Oh yeah, and I think it's important to remember like the lack of investment that they put into that position over the past 6 years. I think the last defensive tackle they drafted was Burn in 2023 that they immediately released and like, and then before that it was Colin Saunders. Like this is not a position that put a whole lot of money investment into Chris Jones, and I think that this is the draft to do it, dude. This you can only procrastinate it so much before you have to get it done. This is the draft to
Yeah, for sure. Okay, question number 2. Which pick is most likely to be used on a running back? Pick 31, 63, 66, 95, or later?
I'm at 63. Is that correct?
Sorry, it's incorrect.
Ooh.
It's 66.
What is it?
66, because what they're going to do, they're going to grab the player that they think is the best player available at 63 and then hope that the running back that they want lasts just a few more picks because they're kind of bookend there. I that's the pick that I envision that they use on a running back because it does still feel like there could be a needle mover there. I think if they wait to 95, that's where you're going to start. The pickings are going to start getting a little slim to me. So that feels like the sweet spot to me because, I mean, I keep coming back to this. I think every team could draft a running back, but I do think that there are some teams that are not going to take one high. Like, you know, you can just run over the list here real quick. What teams do you think are going to be drafting a running, or what teams automatically out on drafting a running back high?
The Eagles.
The Eagles, yeah. Like it's easier to go if you look at the rankings or the draft order to go up, right? The Eagles, Saquon Barkley, they drafted running back last year. Buffalo's maybe they haven't paid James Cook. Detroit, they're a no. Baltimore's probably a no with what they got last year from Derrick Henry. The Rams, they have a pretty good running back. Houston, they just paid a guy. The Green Bay, they just paid a guy. Then you start getting up a little bit higher. Then there's some teams. I think most of the top of the draft order is pretty open to drafting running backs. New England, the Giants, Cleveland, Tennessee, Raiders, Jets. They've got a running back that they took high, but he hasn't really panned out to what they want. Carolina's paying a guy, but yeah, I mean, I think like there's a good chance that there's just certain teams that are just out on running back. So be interesting to see kind of what teams are there and where that run on running backs start. Okay, next one. Which is the bigger draft need, tight end or wide receiver?
So I have a question before I answer this question. Is there a space below where I can fill out my reasoning, or is this just a circle type answer?
I mean, you can like answer the question. You're allowed to talk.
All right.
This is your podcast too. It's not just me.
No, I'm
contrary to what I say.
I'm trying to pass this test. I'm gonna say wide receiver, and for reasons. I think that we're gonna be missing Rice for at least some part of this upcoming season, based on the suspension we all believe is right around the corner. We also don't know if Xavier or not Xavier. If Hollywood Brown is a hero or a hero in the offense. It's very much a question mark whether he can be a huge impact guy. We saw some snaps of that last year, not necessarily enough to make you go, okay, we have a wide receiver, another wide receiver 2 on the roster. I think additional value as well. Wide receivers just historically been valued than tight end. I think there are better wide receivers in this draft late than there are better tight ends or good tight ends later in the draft. So for me, it's wide receiver, and it's a easy chalk it up. We get some Luther Burden in first round, and we'll be good.
Realistically, first off, that's correct. Wide receiver is the bigger need. I do think that tight end is a little bit sneaky because you just don't know what you're getting out of Jared Wiley. We saw them turn over every rock and stone for tight ends kind of throughout this year with Peyton Hendershot. They bring back Jody Fortson. I'm surprised Blake Bell wasn't back. They really Baylor Cup got reps, like they were looking for guys. But the thing I just come back to is like, ultimately you have teams that have pretty good tight ends. There's a few of those teams. And then the rest of the teams, like their tight ends are more just a functional part of their offense. And those guys can be found on day 3, day 2. I think they gave a vote of confidence for Noah Gray, and we've seen him kind of grow in his impact every year. Either way, if they take a tight end, like let's say they're really high on Harold Fanning, or they really like a Gunnar Helm, like Binkley was talking about, even then, their impact in year one, statistically speaking, it's going to be very little, right? Like Noah Gray had like less than 10 catches his rookie year. Jared Wiley had 1, and that was partially because of injury, obviously, but it's just not a likely impact. I think that you should be in the business of drafting a wide receiver every year, as long as wide receiver contracts continue to be what they are. Even with Rashee Rice, who could be an emerging wide receiver 1, I'm not necessarily sure that you want to pay him based off what wide receiver market is, based off the field issues, right? This is a guy that you have to kind of find some creative ways to play. He's going to look at that Amon-Ra St. Brown contract and say, like, this is a similar player to me. I'm younger. I should be paid more than him. So I think they should be in the business of drafting a wide receiver every year. Doesn't necessarily have to be round 1, round 2, round 3, but we've seen some of those later guys hit. You know, they met with Jalen Lane this week out of Virginia Tech. That's a guy that can make some sense. I brought up Keandre Lambert-Smith out of Auburn. He's a guy that I like. Another guy that you kind of have to be creative in how you use him. But I think there's a real incentive to just continue to turn over wide receiver contracts, because guess what? We just saw the Steelers invest a second-round pick in DK Metcalf, pay him on a contract once, and then guess what? They got their second-round pick back and traded him. So, like, the value, it holds for wide receivers.
100%. And the best part about wide receiver, it's one of those positions where if you get one guy that's better than the rest of your group, you just upgraded positions, right? You upgraded your X, you upgraded your Y, you upgraded your Z. It's like there's a real chance that if you get a legit wide receiver 1, or a wide receiver comes in, he's the second best. Now your wide receiver, previously your best wide receiver is now on the best DB. And that upgrades the entire room, raises the floor of our offense. Wide receiver is not a position you can just, let by, especially the Chiefs. But what's your next question for me?
What position are the Chiefs more than likely to take more than one of? So what position would the Chiefs double up in this draft?
I think the easy answer is defensive tackle. I think the kind of scary answer is maybe offensive line. And D-tackle, we've talked about it ad nauseum. Definitely a need for a run stopper and a pass rusher. Offensive line, though, is one of those positions where you go, okay, maybe they take Cameron Williams in the second round, and they can get an interior offensive lineman round 3 or into round 4, and you go, oh no, offensive line is going to be way worse than it was last year. But I think whether we see that or not is going to be a great indication of what's to come for the upcoming year. Like, I mean, we love to talk Kingsley Suamataia and how he could be this like Mekhi Becton player that played tackle, comes inside and is now just a beast dominating these smaller defensive tackles. But like, that's, not 100%. It's not 100% that's going to happen. So if I had to pick one, though, D tackle probably is the best answer.
There were 2 correct answers. So D tackle was one of them, especially whenever you factor in, like, you can draft 2 very different position, 2 different players at defensive tackle, right? Like someone on the team, they had Norman Lott. Why can't I say that all of a sudden?
Yeah, Norman Lott.
Yeah,
yes, yeah.
Potato, tomato, potato. But he's a guy, like, he's kind of the rare defensive tackle that you bring in, and he's not going to be a pass rush guy or a run defense guy for you. Pass rush first. And then they could pair that up with a Jamari Caldwell out of Oregon, who's just a big run stuffing guy. Or you could get the more well-rounded guy like a Joshua Farmer. Running back was the other correct answer, because I do think that they've got some unique needs here. They could go for a Brashard Smith or a Marcus Yarns from Delaware, where this is a guy who factors into that third down passing game first off and foremost, right? I'll also throw in LaQuint Allen from Syracuse, guy who loves to bounce it outside, has speed on the outside, but he's not a guy that you're going to be wanting to put through the tackles routinely. And then maybe they go get a Damian Martinez or a Rocket Sanders or someone like that, where we've kind of like taken care of both needs and slow play those guys. Again, I'm not necessarily sure that Elijah Mitchell is a guy that you're like, whoa, we can't draft over this guy, right? Like, we talked about it. I think there's a real chance that Elijah Mitchell is this year's Irv Smith, the guy that we all like talked about on Twitter because it was exciting and it was a Chiefs move. And then like camp rolls around and it's like, yeah, it's a long shot for this guy to make the roster. And who knows, like, hey, Elijah Mitchell, by all means, have an all-pro season, okay? We're all here for it. But we're talking about what's likely versus what we hope. So I do think running back and defensive tackle are the correct answer. A little bit corner. I'll sprinkle corner in there just because, like, I always lean towards those guys who can impact special teams, right? Corners, those are guys who can start in multiple facets of special teams. We know that the Chiefs are going to have a whole wave of guys hit free agency next year with their, their Najee Johnson, the Joshua Williams, Jalen Watson, Brian Cook, that whole draft class, other than Trent McDuffie, are likely to hit free agency all at the same time. So they're going to need to backfill those positions. They've kind of done that slowly. All right. One more question for you. This one, there's not a right answer to it. I just want to see your reasoning. Will the Chiefs, for their second time in Brett Veach history, trade down? They've only done it one time. And it resulted in Sky Moore. Don't let that impact your decision, though.
Yeah, not when George was on the board. So if I had to guess, say Brett Veach is going to attempt to trade down. Now, I don't know whether that happens or not. I just think based off the amount of first round that they have, the players that are gonna fall, the value of the players, like we talk about Derek Harmon being available at pick 1. That's not a guarantee at all. There are plenty of teams that could see interior defensive tackle as a pass and as the pass rush, where you go, hey, this is our 3 technique. This is going to be Oris Jones, and we can allow these guys on the outside to get open. I think that the value in this draft, after you get out of the top probably 15 picks, is really at pick like 40. 35, 40, where you start to see like the Travion Hendersons get taken, the Quinshawn Judge, just to name a few running backs, but also some of these developmental tackles meet the specifications the Chiefs like. It's like that's about where those guys are going to fall. And hell yeah, if Walter Nolan's there at pick 31, he's going to stick and pick. But if those guys get taken, he's going to try, but not succeed. Whether it gets done or not is kind of,
we always see this push up the board for the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th quarterback, right? Like we saw this with Will Levis a few weeks before the 2023 draft. Markets were moving towards Will Levis to be the number 1 overall pick, which is just a wild time to be alive. Then we got to see the shots of him in Union Station with his very attractive girlfriend. Shout out to her. She really stole the show that night. But of him just sitting there waiting to be picked, and he didn't get picked until the 2nd round. But it is good news for the Chiefs that Jalen Milroe accepted an invitation to be at the draft in Green Bay. Because if a team comes and knocking and they want back up, like one thing that I've been a fan of kind of recently is like, hey, Browns at 2, they don't take Shadur Sanders. They take Travis Hunter. Then they get back up in the 1st round. They get Shadur Sanders and Travis Hunter. Oh, ESPN will be guzzling with them, right? They'll just love the Browns getting that. And like, guess what? The Browns, they finally get to win something. They win draft night. Everyone talks about them pairing Shadur and Travis Hunter back up. And they sell a lot of jerseys, and they go 3-13 again, like usual. But hey, they won draft night. If they want to do that at pick 31, be my guest. Another place that would make a lot of sense would be like the Vikings at 24. Because I'm telling you, if you look at the 1st round, we know that the Titans, they're taking Cam Ward. Pick 2. If the Browns want to go with Travis Hunter, which it sounds like there's a lot of momentum to do, it really comes down to the Giants. Are the Giants taking Shadur Sanders with Russell Wilson, with Jameis Winston? Are they sticking him in that room? I'm not saying that either of those guys should stop you, but if they don't love him, then why wouldn't they take the blue chip guy and Abdul Carter? Or maybe it's Mason Graham or Teteroa McMillan. They take a guy right there. Then the fall starts. The Saints, they still have a lot of money tied up in Derek Carr. You've got the Jets. Would they maybe make the move? I don't know. Maybe we're talking about the wrong New York team for Shadur Sanders, and it's the Jets, not the Giants. But if those people are wanting backup in the 1st round for Jalen Milroe, for Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss, Chiefs could be a logical answer. By all means, guys, please, in this quarterback class, draft 4 of them in the 1st round. Be our guest. We will gladly take that pick number 40. And I'm like a different type of crazy, but if we're sitting here on this live stream for like 4 hours, and we get to pick 31 and the Chiefs trade down, I'm going to be ecstatic because I think that's the best thing that they can do. Because the Chiefs, we've seen in the past, their best drafts come with what? the most picks, right? What was one of the best drafts the Chiefs ever had? 2022, when they have a bunch of picks. One of their other better drafts, when they got Nick Bolton and Creed Humphrey in the second round, because they had 2 second-round picks, right? That's the sweet spot of that draft. So let's fatten up on those picks. Answer the phone, Brett Veach. It's time to trade down. That is going to do it for us today. Shout out to Bink and Chris from the Character Concerns podcast. One more time, you can find that on 96.5 this Thursday. They're doing a show, or you can find them wherever you listen to your podcast, and check out their live event that they mention as well. Keep it locked in here on Arrowhead Addict, as well as we have a ton of draft content coming out all the time. My top 100 big board should be out this week. It'll be my final big board. Sorry, I only got to 100 prospects. I have a family, folks, okay? I have children to feed and a wife to appease. I can't do it all, so you only get 100 prospects from me. But we'll be writing a draft. Christian just talked about had an article come out about Quinshon Judkins. Make sure to check that out. And thank you for producer Richard, who was working some magic on the technical difficulties today. Shout out to him. He's always great. As always, from us here at Arrowhead Addict, it is Go Chiefs, and thank you for listening.